Sir, residents use a side gate. Delivery access is closed. The words were sharp, crisp, and colder than the Beverly Hills morning air. They came from a woman in a white blazer dress, her heels clicking against the slate pavement like punctuation marks in an argument she had already decided to win. She stood at the security post, one hand resting on the glowing access console, the other balanced firmly on her hip. Her sunglasses hid her eyes, though the dawn light was soft enough not to need them. This wasn't about the sun. It was about power. Her name was Ava Monroe, security manager of the Beverly Hills Enclave, a gated community known for its three-story mansions, glass facades, and silent wealth. She had been trained to notice details, the model of the car, the cut of a suit, the shine of a watch. But the man standing in front of her didn't fit any of those markers. He wasn't in a Rolls-Royce, wasn't wearing designer, wasn't carrying an ID badge. He was just standing there, tall, black, 52 years old, sweat drying on a fitted Nike tee after a 5-mile run. His track pants still clung to his calves, his shoes dusty from the pavement. No watch, no driver, no jewelry, no lanyard. Just presence. Ava's lips curled, not quite a smirk, not quite a frown. She repeated herself, voice firmer this time. Delivery access is closed. Use the visitor lane down the hill. The man didn't move. Neither did she. For a second, the only sound was a faint buzz of the gate's motion sensor. The standoff had started. Before we continue, let me ask you something. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity, justice, and respect, hit like and subscribe. Stories like this matter because they reveal truths that often get hidden behind glass walls. Now, back to Marcus. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stepped closer, just close enough for the motion sensor to catch his movement. The console blinked red. Access denied. Ava's brow arched. Her voice cut through the air like a knife. Sir, you're not cleared to trigger that sensor. Step back. Finally, the man spoke. His voice was low but steady. I live here. The words hung heavy. A beat. Then another, long enough to feel disrespectful. Ava tilted her head, unimpressed. She turned slightly, fingers brushing her radio. Unit 3, she said. I've got a male attempting to force sensor activation at Gate 6. No visible ID. Non-compliant tone. Possible squatter situation. That word, squatter, sat in the air like smoke in a locked room. Marcus didn't flinch. His eyes moved slowly across the space, scanning the garden edges, the marble plaque with the engraved family crest half covered by a bougainvillea branch. He had chosen every stone of this property, every railing, every detail of the gate that now denied him. But none of that mattered to Ava. To her, he wasn't a man returning home. He was a question mark in sweatpants. And that was all it took. Behind Marcus, a delivery van slowed as it approached. The pastel pink branding of Flores Grocers painted across its side. The driver took one look at the tent scene, eyebrows raised, phone already in his hand. Ava took a step forward, heels clicking, confidence like armor. If you're not off this property in 30 seconds, I'm calling lapped, she warned. And trust me, trespassing in this neighborhood isn't a light charge. Marcus raised an eyebrow. His voice was calm, but each word landed with weight. You always threaten residents like that? Or just the ones who don't show up in Bentleys? Ava's jaw tightened. Don't get smart. This is a private security matter. You're escalating. No, Marcus replied, voice even lower. You are. From the corner of the street, the delivery driver's camera was already rolling. The gate blinked red again, buzzing like a verdict. Ava squared her shoulders, performing now. Her voice grew sharper, louder, meant for the recording phones. You look lost, sir. This is private property. The gate buzzed again. Still red. Still denial. Marcus didn't move. He didn't shout. He just stood. His eyes locked onto Ava's, calm but steady, like he had flipped a switch inside her world, one she didn't yet realize were broken. I already told you, he said. I live here. Ava gave a dry laugh, tilting her head as if amused. And I'm moonlight as a princess. Step aside. Sir, you're not cleared. Her hand went to her radio again. Unit 4, I've got a 10 to 16. Suspicious individual claiming residency. Possible impersonator. Request immediate backup. From the side booth, 2 more officers emerged. One wore a vest half-zipped, the other still sipping coffee from a stainless steel mug. They slowed as they saw Marcus, brows furrowed. "Who's this?" one asked. "Someone who thinks he owns a place," Ava replied without breaking her gaze. The younger guard tilted his head, looking Marcus up and down. "You here for maintenance." Marcus opened his mouth, but Ava cut him off. "He says as a resident. We're still verifying." "You could just ask his name," the younger guard muttered. But Ava silenced him with a single glance. Marcus exhaled slowly, deliberately. His voice was calm but edged with iron. "I don't need to prove my identity to a woman who hasn't earned the right to question it." That line hit like a spark. Ava stepped closer, lowering her voice, venom dripping. "Listen, sir, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but this isn't one of those gotcha TikToks. You're not going viral off me." Marcus gave a half smile, not amused, but measured. "This isn't for TikTok," he said. "This is for legacy." A hush lingered, broken only when the delivery driver stepped closer, hesitant but firm. "Hey, I've delivered here before," he said. His voice carried. "That's Marcus Hall, right?" The name landed heavy. Marcus Hall. Ava turned sharply. "Sir, step back. This doesn't concern you." But it did now, because the name had been said out loud. And suddenly, this wasn't just about sweatpants. This was about recognition. This was about a man whose name had appeared on Forbes covers, whose company had shaped skylines, whose investments built the very block Ava was standing on. But stripped of the suit, stripped of the car, stripped of the status symbols, he was invisible to her. Ava smirked. "Marcus Hall, please. If you're so important, where's your ID? Your driver? Your proof?" Marcus paused for a beat, then reached slowly into the zipper pocket near his waistband. He pulled out a phone, screen slick with sweat, one corner cracked. He tapped a single number. "Caller," he said into the receiver, "activate Protocol 7. Get override. Verify ownership. Open entry logs for Lot 214. A voice on the other end answered immediately, calm, precise, unquestioning. "Confirmed, Mr. Hall. Executing now." The moment she said his name, Mr. Hall, the guards behind Ava shifted. One lowered his coffee. The other swallowed hard. "But Ava," Ava laughed. "A phone call? That's your power move? Anyone can hire someone to pretend." Then it happened. The gate unlocked with a soft, mechanical click. A voice rang from the overhead speaker. Clear, robotic, final. Override successful. Marcus DeHall, primary resident. Beverly Hills authority verified by Whole Tech OS. The silence that followed wasn't silence. It was impact. The delivery driver lowered his phone for a second, then raised it higher. Ava's lips parted. Just slightly. Marcus Hall stepped forward. Still calm. Still composed. Still home. The gate had spoken. The system itself announced his name with authority that no blazer, no badge, no smirk could erase. Override successful. Marcus DeHall, primary resident. Beverly Hills authority verified by Whole Tech OS. For a moment, silence fell across the courtyard. Silence so heavy it pressed into the skin. The guard shifted uneasily. The coffee mug lowered halfway. The younger officer's eyes darted from Marcus to Ava, unsure which direction loyalty now belonged. Even the floor's delivery driver lowered his phone for just a second, as if to make sure the moment was real before raising it again, his camera catching every breath, every blink. Ava Monroe's lips parted, but no words came. Her body froze, posture still rigid but trembling beneath the weight of exposure. The console she clung to had just betrayed her. The gate had bowed to the man she was trying to dismiss. But pride is heavier than reason. Override or not, she snapped finally, finding her voice, "You're not walking through without my clearance." The younger officer frowned. The system verified him. "I said not yet." Ava barked, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "That system could be hacked. We need to escalate this for internal verification. Marcus didn't respond. He didn't need to. He stood still, breathing slow, as if the weight of his calm was louder than her shouts. From the curb, the Flores driver called out, "Yo?" The gate just said his name. "What else do you want? A blood sample?" A ripple of laughter moved through the small crowd that had begun to gather. Another car slowed behind the van, a sleek black Tesla, tinted windows. The driver's window rolled halfway down. A Latina woman in her 40s leaned out, confusion written across her face. "What's the holdup?" she asked. The younger guard muttered, "It's complicated." But the Flores driver shot back immediately. "Not really. They just tried to block the guy who owns the place. And now they're scrambling." The woman leaned further, eyes scanning past Ava, past the guards, until they landed on Marcus. Recognition hit her like lightning. "Oh my God," she whispered, audible enough for everyone to hear. "That's Marcus Hall, from Hall Tech." The name carried. It spread across the air like wildfire. Ava heard it. Everyone did. And her grip on control slipped just a little more. Still, she doubled down. She always doubled down. "You can't just walk in because you say you live here," she snapped. Marcus's gaze finally broke from the gate and turned to her. "Calm. Steady." His words sliced through the morning like a verdict. "I didn't say I live here. Your system did. And unless you'd like to override your own protocol, I suggest you step aside." The air grew heavier. Even the birds in the hedges seemed to pause. The younger officer scratched his neck, nervous. We're supposed to follow system verification, aren't we?" Ava's voice dropped low, almost venomous. "You want to let him in? Fine. But when it turns out this was a mistake, it's your job on the line." The young guard froze, torn between policy and pressure. Finally, he stepped back slowly. But Ava? Ava didn't move. She planted herself firmer. She stepped toward Marcus, too close, voice dripping with defiance. "You think having your name in a computer makes you untouchable? People spoof access all the time, especially people like you." The phrase hung. The sting was obvious. People like you. The kind of phrase meant to cut deeper than just procedure. Marcus tilted his head slightly, expression unchanged. His response came quiet, steady, but final. "People like me built this neighborhood." Gasps! Not just from the Tesla driver, not just from the Flores, but from passers-by now slowing to listen. A barista carrying a tray of cold brew stopped mid-step. A dog walker pulled off her earbuds. Phones were up, cameras recording. The story had already escaped Ava's control. For the first time, her voice cracked, but her pride shoved it back into place. She pressed her radio hard, voice sharp, clip, surgical. "Unit 7, respond. Escalation at Gate 6. Possible impersonator. Notify lap dispatch. Immediate response requested." The words landed like a gavel. Marcus didn't flinch. He didn't raise his voice. His body was still, shoulders square, hands relaxed at his sides. But something colder flashed in his eyes, something that said this wasn't the first time he had been told he didn't belong. And it wouldn't be the last. "You just called the police," he said, not as a question but as a fact. Ava lifted her chin. "Yes, because in this neighborhood we don't tolerate threats." "What threat?" the Flores called out, stepping forward with his phone still filming. "The man hasn't even moved." "Exactly," the Tesla driver added firmly. "He's the victim here." But Ava didn't turn, her heels rooted to the pavement, her voice louder now, trying to outshout the doubt creeping in. "You're just another trespasser with a story, and I don't care what some automated voice said. If you don't leave now, you're going to jail." Marcus blinked slowly, then pulled out his phone again. No anger, just control. "Carla," he said calmly, "they've escalated. Activate Phase 2. Full system audit. Real-time compliance log. Broadcast on my open channel." On the other end, Carla's voice came immediate, cool, unwavering. "Understood, Mr. Hall. Phase 2 live. All security footage syncing now. Ownership record front-facing. Gate logs archived. Ava Monroe's escalation has been time-stamped." The moment Ava's name was spoken, Her spine stiffened. The younger guard's eyes darted. The older one lowered his coffee completely. "This serious," the younger muttered under his breath. "Serious." The Flores barked. "The man told you who he was. You didn't listen." From across the sidewalk, another voice joined, a young black woman in workout gear, earbuds dangling. She raised her chin, voice clear. "I live 3 blocks down. I've seen him jogging here every morning for 3 years." Ava spun toward her, snapping, "This is not your concern." The woman didn't flinch. "No, but it's yours, and you just made it public." Because now there were more phones. Not just a Flores, not just a Tesla. 3, maybe 4 others. A small crowd forming, each one a witness. And Marcus, he hadn't moved an inch. He stood there like gravity itself recognized him. The gate buzzed again. This time, green. The sound echoed like a verdict. The only thing broken wasn't Marcus's access. It was Ava's authority. Yet Marcus didn't walk through. Not yet. He waited. Waited because this wasn't just about entering a property. It was about entering history, with everyone watching. Ava's hand trembled slightly near her console. Her eyes darted at the glowing green, the flashing confirmation. But her jaw stayed tight. She forced her voice firm, though cracks leaked through. "The system may have been hacked. We need further verification. I won't allow unauthorized entry." Behind her, one of the officers finally checked his tablet. His face drained of color. His name's on the deed. Registered since 2017. He owns this gate, this house, and the one next door. Ava whipped around, eyes blazing. "What?" The Flores lifted his phone higher, voice shaking but loud enough to carry. "You mean to tell me you called the cops on the owner? On the guy who built this block?" The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy, like glass about to shatter. And Marcus, he still hadn't moved. He didn't need to, because the system had already moved for him. The street outside Gate 6 was no longer quiet. What had started as a tense standoff between one man in sweatpants and one woman in a white blazer was now something much bigger. The air itself seemed to thicken, charged with attention, recording, witnessing. The green light on the gate kept pulsing, a soft buzz repeating every few seconds, as though reminding everyone of the truth. Access granted. But Ava Monroe stood in front of the console like a dam against a river, refusing to let the flow pass. Her hands stiff, her lips pressed tight, her eyes sharp but restless behind those dark glasses. And still, Marcus Hall did not move. His presence alone was louder than any command, any threat, any radio call. He stood steady, shoulders squared, sweat cooling on his temples, as though gravity had chosen him as its anchor. The younger guard voice broke the silence first. He said, holding out his tablet. "It's right here. Deed registered to Marcus de Hall. Lot 214. Adjacent parcels included. Here's the owner." Ava's jaw clenched so tight her teeth nearly cracked. She turned slowly, venom dripping in every syllable. That system could be compromised. You want to gamble your jobs on a glitch. But her tone betrayed her. It was no longer sharp authority. It was desperate, defensive. The Flores delivery driver shook his head, raising his phone higher. "This ain't a glitch. This is you not listening." And now, more people were listening. A man in cycling shorts rolled his bike to the curb, pulled out his phone, and joined the recording. A barista in an apron set down her tray of cold brew just to get a better angle. Cars began slowing along the lane. Dog walkers paused, earbuds pulled free. The Tesla driver leaned further out her window, voice louder now. "Everyone knows who he is. That's Marcus Hall. He built half this district." A whisper ran through the growing crowd. The name repeated, bouncing from one witness to another. "Marcus Hall. Marcus Hall. Hall Tech." Ava snapped her head toward the crowd, her voice sharp. "Step back. This is private security business. Do not interfere." But no one moved. In fact, more phones went up. More lenses fixed on her white blazer, her hand clinging to the console, her voice cutting through the morning like a blade against her own rope. And Marcus, he still hadn't raised his voice. He still hadn't stepped forward. He simply looked at her, calm, Steady, a presence that grew heavy with every witness who arrived. Then, a new voice broke through. Soft, but clear. From the sidewalk, a young black woman in workout gear, sweat still fresh from her morning run, spoke firmly. I've lived here 3 blocks down for 3 years. I see this man jogging every morning. Every single morning. The crowd murmured. Heads turned toward Ava. The woman didn't stop. She pointed at Marcus, her voice louder now, gathering strength from the moment. You can't say he doesn't belong here. We've all seen him. You just didn't want to. Ava's head snapped toward her, eyes blazing. This isn't your concern. But the woman's reply cut clean. No, it's everyone's concern now. Phone shifted. Angles widened. The live stream counter on the Flores driver's screen ticked higher. From a few dozen to hundreds, and climbing fast. A murmur rippled through the onlookers. She doesn't know who he is. She's doubling down. This is going viral. The weight of public eyes pressed heavier than any lap dispatch Ava had tried to call. Marcus finally spoke, his words low but heavy. You thought the gate gave you power, but all it showed was your fear. A hush followed, the kind of hush that doesn't silence, but amplifies. Every word landing in the phones, the recordings, the comments already flooding online. From the crowd, the Flores raised his voice again. Yo, whoever's watching this, take note. This man just got denied entry to his own mansion. The gate confirmed him. The system confirmed him. But security didn't. The Tesla driver chimed in, voice cutting like a knife. We're still doing this in 2025. The crowd murmured agreement, voices blending into a low hum of disapproval that Ava couldn't control. She gripped her radio tighter, pressing it like it was the last weapon she had. Unit 7, respond. She barked again. Escalation at Gate 6. Immediate assistance required. But no response came. Not because they hadn't heard her, but because another voice broke through louder, firmer, undeniable. Carla. Through Marcus's phone speaker, her calm tone echoed across the scene. Mr. Hall, lap dispatch was contacted. Our legal team intercepted the call. Monitoring has begun in real time. Escalation logs are live. Compliance review of Ava Monroe's behavior underway. 7 prior complaints noted. Pattern established. The crowd erupted in murmurs. 7 complaints? Pattern? Phones tilted closer. Streams went live. Screens lit up faces. The younger guard stepped back, his voice almost trembling. This is on record. They've got everything. Ava's face tightened. Her posture tore, but her hands shook at her sides. Still, her voice pushed forward like a dying flame refusing to go out. You can't just override my authority. Marcus tilted his head, his voice calm as ever. You never had authority, just a uniform, and a gate, neither of which you control anymore. It was surgical, it was final, and it was caught on 10 different phones at once. The crowd's hum rose louder. Not cheers, not chants, just a wave of acknowledgement. A realization spreading through witnesses and viewers alike. They were watching history repeat itself, but this time in real time, in public, undeniable. From the sidewalk, the woman with the cold brew finally spoke, voice cutting the tension. You don't get to erase a man just because he didn't dress like a CEO today. The crowd murmured louder. Nods, whispers, comment flying through live streams. Marcus still hadn't moved. He hadn't raised his voice once. And yet, the ground itself seemed to lean toward him. The gate buzzed again. Green. Louder this time, like a drumbeat to the moment. And still, he didn't walk through. Not yet, because this wasn't about proving he could. It was about showing why he hadn't been allowed to in the first place. The green glow reflected off his sweat, his calm eyes, his still shoulders. A verdict shining against every bias thrown his way. And Ava Monroe? She stood there trembling behind her sunglasses, still pretending she was in charge, but everyone could see the truth now. The crowd had grown. The cameras were rolling. And the only thing shrinking was her authority. The tension at Gate 6 had thickened into something almost unbreathable. The green light kept buzzing, glowing like a beacon of truth. Access granted. Yet still, Ava Monroe stood frozen at the console, her blazer pristine, her jaw set, her authority unraveling thread by thread. Behind her, the younger guard shifted his weight uncomfortably, his tablet still glowing with Marcus Hall's name, ownership records, and deed verification. Every fact was stacked in front of them, and yet Ava's pride was heavier than proof. The crowd outside the gate had doubled again. What began as one delivery driver filming on his phone had grown into a living witness stand. Cyclists leaned on handlebars, baristas clutched half-melted trays of iced coffee, neighbors peeked from car windows, and dog walkers pulled their leashes closer. All of them had their phones raised. All of them were watching. And on those phones, Marcus Hall wasn't just a man in sweatpants. He was dignity in motion. Calm, steady, unshakable. Ava pressed her radio again, her voice sharp but breaking in its edges. Unit 7, immediate backup. Suspect impersonating resident. Escalation confirmed. Notify lap dispatch. The words landed heavy, but this time no one believed them. The younger officer frowned. The older one with the coffee mug shook his head. Even Ava could feel the doubt crawling into her own command. Then Marcus spoke, his voice low, but strong enough to cut through the entire street. You just called the police, he said, not as a question, but as a sentence. Yes. Ava snapped, her chin lifted in defiance. Because in this neighborhood, we don't tolerate threats. The Flores delivery driver shouted from the curb, phone steady in his hand. What threat? He hasn't even moved. The only thing threatening is you holding that console like it's a sword. The Tesla driver leaned further out her window, face grim. Here's a victim here, and you're proving it to all of us. But Ava didn't turn toward them. She couldn't. Because her war wasn't with the crowd. It was with her own pride. She clung to it like a drowning woman clings to driftwood, even as the waves dragged her under. Marcus stayed calm, his presence towering without a single raised tone. Then he lifted his phone again, speaking as if this was just another business call. Carla, escalate protocol. Phase 2, broadcast logs, real-time compliance audit. Carla's voice echoed from his speaker, clear and clinical. Confirmed, Mr. Hall. Phase 2 live. Security feeds archived. Ownership records projected. Ava Monroe's escalation timestamped. Pattern of misconduct identified. The younger officer's face paled. Pattern, he repeated under his breath. Carla's voice carried on, her words designed like bullets. 7 prior complaints filed against security manager Ava Monroe. None escalated. Behavior consistent. Documented bias. The crowd reacted instantly. Murmurs spread like wildfire. 7 complaints. Bias. Documented. Phone zoomed in on Ava's rigid stance. The comment began flying across live stream screens. She's done. 7 strikes already. This is the last one. The younger guard stepped back. This is serious. We're being recorded. But Ava's pride refused to crack. Her voice came sharp, her words desperate. You can't override my authority. Marcus turned his head slightly, his gaze fixed on her with the precision of a scalpel. His reply was slow, deliberate. You never had authority, just a uniform, and a gate, neither of which you control anymore. The crowd murmured louder. Nods, whispers, agreement. It was a blow she couldn't hide from. For the first time, Ava faltered. Her hand hovered near the console, trembling, betraying her. But her mouth kept moving, trying to say what was already lost. You think your name in a computer makes you untouchable? People like you don't last without proof, without paperwork, without us. Marcus's eyes locked on Hayes, unshaken. His voice came quiet, final. People like me built this neighborhood. The words cracked the morning wide open. The Tesla driver gasped. The Flores whispered into his stream. You all heard that? He said it, and we all know it's true. A new voice rose from the crowd, a woman clutching a yoga mat, her voice shaky but determined. I've lived here 10 years. I know that name. Marcus Hall built the condos on Leary. I remember the ribbon cutting. A man in a baseball cap chimed in. Hall Tech. He's a billionaire. That's him. Here's the reason this community even exists. The wave of recognition grew, and with it, Ava's grip on control collapsed. But pride is stubborn. She stepped closer. Too close. Her voice a hiss meant only for Marcus. You think this crowd will save you? You think a few phones can erase what I decide at this gate? Marcus's answer came calm, cold, steady. No, not a few phones. The truth. And with that, the gate buzzed again. Green. Louder this time. Longer. The sound no longer just a signal, but a verdict. The younger officer finally spoke up, his voice trembling with the weight of the moment. We can't block him anymore. The system verified. The logs are live. If we stop him now, it's on us. The older officer stepped back entirely, his coffee mug hanging useless at his side. He shook his head, muttering, "This is over." But Ava Monroe wasn't built to surrender gracefully. Her jaw tightened, her shoulders squared, and she barked again into her silent radio. Unit 7. Status? Respond. Respond now. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was damning, because everyone knew no one was coming. Carla's voice filled the void once more, louder, clearer. Mr. Hall, legal monitoring active. Ava Monroe flagged for misconduct. Employment report under review. Authorization ready to revoke credentials upon your command. A collective gasp spread through the crowd. The moment had shifted. It wasn't about blocking a resident anymore. It was about accountability. For the first time, Ava's voice cracked, barely holding on. You can't just erase me like this. Marcus's gaze didn't soften. His reply was simple. You erased me the moment you saw sweatpants instead of ownership. Phones caught it. Streams exploded. Comments flew across screens. That line. Frame it. This is history. The crowd grew louder, not cheering, not chanting, but acknowledging. A low hum of agreement, of justice finally tipping. Ava Monroe stood trembling in her blazer, still upright but hollow, her authority nothing more than a ghost clinging to a console that no longer answered her touch. The breaking point had come, and everyone knew it, everyone could feel it, the moment that changes everything. The gate pulsed green again, like a heartbeat you could hear. The crowd had grown into a small sea of faces and raised phones. The air was thick, quiet, and waiting, and in front of the console, Ava Monroe looked smaller than she had a minute ago. Not because she had stepped back, but because power had... Carla's voice came through Marcus's phone, steady and clear, like a judge reading a line the room had to accept. Mr. Hall, legal confirms we have authority to revoke credentials. Do you want to proceed? Marcus didn't need drama. He didn't need volume. He just said, proceed. The effect was instant. The console behind Ava dimmed, then blinked, then went dark. The radio in her hand crackled once and died. The badge on her blazer flashed red, then stayed red, a cold little light that told the truth out loud. She pressed buttons that no longer worked. She lifted the radio like it might wake up if she held it the right way. Nothing. The younger officer stared at the dead panel. The older one looked down at his coffee like he had been holding a prop in a play he no longer believed in. The crowd's breath tightened all at once, then released into a low wave of whispers that washed across the sidewalk. Ava swallowed, and for the first time, the sharp edge in her voice was gone. You can't do this to me, she said. Not loud now, not certain, just scared. I've worked here 5 years. Marcus didn't blink. And in 5 minutes, you tried to erase a man who owns the land your gate sits on. The Flores driver whispered to his stream. Yo, her badge is red. They cut her off. This is real. In the corner of his screen, the live count jumped again. 10,000. 20. Some comments scrolled like a river. Seen this too many times. Calm is power. This is bigger than a gate. The Tesla driver leaned out her window. You need to step back from the console, she said, voice firm but not cruel. The younger guard, finding his own courage at last, echoed it. Please, Ms. Monroe, step away. It's over. Ava looked at them like she didn't recognize their faces. She had been their leader 10 minutes ago. Now, even their eyes would not follow her. She took a step away, then another, her heels softer now on the stone. She kept the radio in her hand like a memory. Carla's voice filled the quiet again. Mr. Hall, perimeter reset complete. All entries linked to Monroe's ID are removed. Do you want to assign interim authority for Gate 6? Marcus turned, not to the older guard, but to the younger one, the only person who had tried to pull the brake before the crash. What's your name? Marcus asked. Eric, he said, a little stunned to be included. You tried to ask a question, Marcus said. That matters. Eric, you'll serve as interim lead for Gate 6 for the next 72 hours. Follow the system. Follow the policy. And whenever there is doubt, ask. Eric nodded, eyes wide, tablet still shaking in his hands. Yes, sir. Ava's mouth fell open. You can't just replace me like that, she said, the old bite trying to come back and failing. You can't. Marcus looked at her the way a storm looks at a match. Calm, unbothered, final. I didn't replace you, he said. You did. The barista on the curb let out a small breath. Someone whispered, That's the line. Another voice said, Frame it. The live comments agreed. You did. Accountability. Carla spoke again, and the weight of her words was the weight of a building. Mr. Hall, Westridge Estates Management Board, has joined the call. Clarion Legal is present. HOA head listening. Would you like to open the channel? Open, Marcus said. He didn't step closer to the crowd. He didn't walk away. He stood where he had been the whole time, and in that stillness, a private world began to listen. He spoke like the room was full, because it was, even if no one could see it. This is Marcus Hall, he said, simple as sunlight. A gate verified me. A manager denied me. Not because of policy, but pride. Not because of risk, but bias. I'm requesting immediate suspension of the on-site manager pending a formal review. Ava took a step forward as if she could grab the words and push them back into his mouth. Mr. Hall, please. He lifted a hand once, not to silence her, but to end the argument. Carla, he said, eyes still on Ava. Note that she ignored system verification, tried to call police without cause, and blocked a resident after confirmation. Add the witness statements. Logged, Carla replied. Board acknowledges receipt. Clarion Legal confirms a basis for suspension. The older guard set his coffee on the ground, like putting down a shield he no longer wanted to carry. Ms. Monroe, he said carefully, we can't be a part of this. Not like this. The system said green. We saw it. Everybody saw it. Ava looked around at the faces. Not a crowd to command, not a team to direct, just people, neighbors, workers, passers-by, who knew what they saw and were not going to pretend otherwise. Pride tried one last time to stand up inside her. It had carried her through years of noise. It was not strong enough for this kind of quiet. I didn't know who he was, she said. It was all she had left. Marcus's answer came without any weight of anger, and that made it heavier. That was the problem. You didn't ask. From the sidewalk, the young runner who had spoken before nodded. That's it. She didn't ask. She decided. The gate buzzed green again, soft but sure, like the world reminding everyone of the truth no one could shut off. Marcus turned slightly, enough to address the entire team now. This is not revenge, he said. This is a reset. You have two choices. Stay with a bad decision, or stand with the policy you signed. Choose now. And remember, your choice is part of this record. Eric stepped to Marcus's side, not close enough to be bold, just close enough to be clear. The older guard nodded too, quiet and tired, like a man who had carried too many wrong orders for too long. Ava looked at both of them, then at the crowd, then at her silent radio. The red badge light reflected in her sunglasses like a small, honest fire. She wasn't in charge anymore. She wasn't even in the story anymore, not the way she had been. She was a lesson the street had just learned it in public. Carla's voice returned, crisp as a new page. Mr. Hall, board vote complete. Suspension approved. Security Manager Ava Monroe, access terminated. Compliance package delivered. Do you want a public statement? Marcus shook his head. Not yet, he said. The moment speaks for itself. He turned his eyes back to the crowd, not to hype them, not to feed a trend, to honor the fact that they stood there and told the truth when it mattered. Thank you for witnessing. he said, and the words came out like a blessing and a boundary at the same time. Go home and remember this. Calm can move the ground under your feet. You don't have to shout to be heard. Someone clapped once, then another. Not loud, not wild, just honest. A sound that said, "We saw it." The live counter kicked higher. Comments kept moving. He didn't yell once. He taught a class on power. My dad went through this. Thank you. Ava stood a few steps from the console. The panel, now dark, reflected her face back at her, small, floating, unsure. She pulled off her badge. For a second she held it like it might say something. Then it didn't, so it fell quiet in her hand. Marcus looked at Eric. Keep the gate open, he said. Follow the green. If the system says a resident, you treat them like one. If you are unsure, you ask. Yes, sir, Eric said again, this time without shaking. From the street, a teenager in an apron called out, Mr. Hall, my brother interned at your company. He said you visited every floor, even the janitor's rooms. Marcus gave him a small nod. Tell him that's where the engines live. Laughter rolled thin and warm across the lane, the kind that lets a tense body breathe again. Carla's voice softened half a shade. Mr. Hall, do you wish to begin full vendor review for the security contractor? Not yet, Marcus said. We're not done here. He looked at the two remaining guards, then at the rest of the staff watching from deeper inside the post. You saw what happened. Decide who you are. I won't make that choice for you. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was space. Space for people to step into with their name and their job and their mirror. The older guard took off his earpiece and placed it on the ledge with his cooling coffee. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. Marcus took one breath, then another. The house behind him waited. The street in front of him healed. The lesson stood on its own legs. The collapse wasn't loud. It was calm, and that made it complete. The Beverly Hills morning had shifted. What began as a clash at a gate was now something larger, heavier. A story carried not only by the people standing on the sidewalk, but by thousands watching live on their phones. The green glow on the console pulsed like a heartbeat the whole street could feel. Access granted. Ava Monroe stood pale beside the dead console, her badge light stuck on red like a scarlet mark. Eric held his tablet firmly now, no longer shaking, the confirmation still glowing across the screen. Marcus the Hall, owner. Verified. Carla's voice returned over the speakerphone, precise and cold as steel. Mr. Hall, board and legal team confirm authority to terminate vendor contract. Security contractor has breached compliance. Authorization ready upon your command. The crowd stirred. Murmurs rippled. Phones tilted closer. The word terminate carried a gravity all its own. Marcus didn't rush. He didn't raise his voice. He let the silence work for him. Then he spoke. Carla, open vendor contract logs. Project on public feed. Confirmed. A holographic display appeared on Eric's tablet, mirrored onto the security hub inside the post. Even from a distance, the crowd could see lines of text glowing across the glass. Contracts, dates, signatures. And there, highlighted in blue, the words, Authorized Client, Marcus the Hall. Right of termination at will. A gasp rolled through the crowd. The story was no longer about one guard or one mistake. It was about power written into paper, ownership inked into the very foundation of the neighborhood. Marcus kept his eyes on the crowd, not on Ava. His words were for everyone now. You don't fire people with anger. You fire them with clarity. He paused, letting it land. And clarity is simple. They forgot who they worked for. The Flores driver whispered into his phone. Yo, he's about to drop the hammer. His live stream ticked past 30,000. Comments raced faster than he could read. This is leadership. Watch calm power. Firing about to happen live. Marcus spoke again, steady as stone. Carla, effective immediately, terminate contract with Westridge Security. Revoke all access for on-site personnel. Begin vendor review. Carla's voice did not hesitate. Confirmed. Vendor contract terminated. All active credentials revoked. Resetting access hierarchy. Marcus the Hall recognized as primary system administrator. The console behind Ava let out one last dull buzz, then powered down completely. The two remaining officers at her side looked at each other, then back at Marcus. One by one, their badges flashed red. Their radios died in their hands. The collapse was quiet, but total. The crowd reacted instantly. A low rumble of disbelief. Some clapped softly. Others shook their heads, muttering about justice finally catching up in real time. The live stream comment exploded, all fired. Never seen power like this. This is history on tape. Ava stumbled a step forward. Her voice cracked. You can't just erase an entire team. Marcus turned his head toward her, calm and final. I didn't erase you. The system did. I just pressed and firm. The Tesla driver whispered out her window, "Oh my God, that's a line." The Flores repeated it into his camera. "That's a line. Frame it." He said it. The yoga mat woman from the sidewalk raised her phone higher, her voice trembling but firm. "This isn't about erasing. It's about accountability. You erase him first." The crowd hummed louder, nods rippling like waves. Ava looked at their faces, her control gone, her authority shattered in public daylight. Marcus lifted his phone again. "Carla, notify Clarion Legal. Begin onboarding of emergency contractor. For the next 72 hours, I'll handle direct oversight. Eric will maintain local protocol. System logs open to board." "Confirmed," Carla replied. "Emergency contractor engaged. Transition in progress." The younger guard, Eric, swallowed hard, but nodded. "Yes, so." He looked down at his dead radio, then back at Marcus. "Thank you for trusting me." Marcus's gaze was steady. "Trust isn't given. It's tested. You passed." The crowd let out a ripple of soft applause. Not loud, not cheering, just acknowledgement. The live stream flooded again. That line, too. Trust is tested. A masterclass in calm. Ava shook her head, still holding the useless badge. "You've ruined my career," she said, her words trembling more than her body now. Marcus didn't flinch. His eyes held hers, still calm. "You ruined your career when you called me a squatter at my own gate." Phones caught it. Screens froze on her face, pale behind the sunglasses. The live stream jumped again, 40,000, then 50. From the crowd, the barista called out, "Mr. Hall, you're teaching us more right now than any book ever could. You didn't even raise your voice." Marcus gave the smallest nod. His words floated across the courtyard. "Storms don't shake foundations. They test them." The crowd murmured again. Phones tilted. The line repeated online like it was etched in stone. "Storms don't shake foundations. They test them." Carla's voice returned one last time. "Mr. Hall, Westridge Board confirms acknowledgement. Termination of Monroe and all staff complete. Legal team prepared to issue public statement. Would you like to approve a draft?" Marcus took a breath, the kind that carried years inside it. Then he shook his head. "No, not yet. Let the truth speak first. The cameras already did the job." The Flores whispered into his phone. "He doesn't even need a press team. The man just ended a whole company live." The Tesla driver turned to her daughter on FaceTime. "Baby, you're seeing history. Write that name down. Marcus Hall. Hall Tech. Remember it." The girl's voice crackled faintly through the speaker. "I already did, Mom." Marcus turned his eyes back to the dead console, the gate still pulsing green. He took one step closer, calm and deliberate. "This isn't about revenge," he said, his voice reaching the crowd, the guards, the phones, the feeds. "It's about respect, and respect doesn't wear uniforms. It wears truth." The silence after was thick, not empty, a silence filled with understanding. The security team was gone. The contractor dissolved. And in front of the gate he designed, Marcus Hall stood, not just as a man in sweatpants, but as the owner, the architect, the power no one could evict. The gate had turned silent. The crowd had thinned but not vanished. Some lingered, unsure if they were watching the end or the beginning of something greater. The console lay dark, a quiet witness to the collapse of a team and the rise of one man's calm authority. Marcus Hall, billionaire CEO, stood steady in front of his own mansion. He hadn't yelled once. He hadn't broken a sweat. Yet his voice had cut sharper than any raised tone. He had suspended a manager, fired an entire security contractor, and reset the chain of command with nothing but clarity and presence. The world had seen it. Phones had captured it. Streams had spread it. And already, the comments flowing online weren't just about the gate anymore. They were about him, about leadership, about what it looks like when a man refuses to lose dignity even when dignity is denied. Inside his house, the air was still. He walked through the wide glass doors into a space that looked less like luxury and more like intention. No gaudy chandeliers, no walls screaming wealth. Just clean lines, soft light, and books stacked where they could be read. He dropped his keys on the counter, but his mind didn't rest. He thought of his father, a mechanic who never owned much but carried respect like it was his birthright. Son, his father used to say, you don't raise your voice to prove power. Power is a room going quiet when you speak normal. That morning, his father's words had lived again. Marcus poured himself a glass of water and sat at the long oak table in his living room. He didn't turn on the news. He didn't need to. He knew the story had already gone viral. Clips of Ava Monroe denying him, the badge flashing red, the console shutting down, the words, you didn't ask. All of it was already spreading. He could feel it. And yet, this wasn't about clicks. It wasn't about trending. For him, it was about memory. He remembered being 23, building his first prototype in a garage with wires taped together and code that barely worked. He remembered security guards at office towers who used to wave him off when he came in for meetings, mistaking him for a delivery boy instead of a founder. He remembered sitting in waiting rooms, ignored until the receptionist was ready to see him. It had never been about clothes. It had never been about cars. It had always been about perception. And perception, when wielded by the wrong people, could become a cage. That morning, at his own gate, he had faced the same perception again. Only this time, he was no longer a kid with a dream. He was the owner of the dream. And the cage didn't close. Marcus leaned back in his chair and spoke softly to the empty room. Calm isn't weakness. It's strategy. In the quiet, those words hung heavy, as though the house itself had been waiting to hear them. Outside, the last few bystanders slowly drifted away, whispering to each other, texting friends, replaying the story they had just seen unfold. Some didn't even know his name before that morning. Now they would not forget it. On the internet, the clips exploded. One showed Ava Monroe shouting squatter while the system pulsed green. Another cut to Marcus saying, I didn't replace you. You did. A third clip, already captioned and shared on platforms worldwide, showed him standing silent, then saying, respect doesn't wear uniforms. It wears truth. Comment sections filled up. This is what leadership looks like. Never yelled, but every word landed. Wish my boss learned from this man. For some, it was just drama at a mansion gate. But for others, it was a reflection of everyday life, being overlooked, being misjudged, being dismissed before being heard. Marcus had stood for more than himself. He had stood for anyone who had ever been asked to prove they belonged where they already had a right to be. Later that evening, Carla called back. Her voice, calm as always, carried a new respect. Mr. Hall, the board approved the permanent termination of Westridge Security. We're finalizing contracts with your recommended replacement. Local news channels are calling this incident a case study in corporate leadership. Some even call it a masterclass in presence. Marcus sipped his water. The press will chase the noise, he said. But Carla, don't forget what it really was. And what was that, sir? A lesson for all of us. Carla didn't respond right away. Then, softly, she said, understood. When the call ended, Marcus walked out onto the balcony. The city stretched beneath him, lights flickering like stars that had fallen onto the streets. He thought again of his father, of the garage, of the moments when respect wasn't given. He thought of the thousands of people who saw themselves in what happened today. And he thought of Ava Monroe. He didn't feel hate. He didn't feel vengeance. He felt something else, an understanding that fear can twist into pride, and pride can blind even competent people. She hadn't lost a job because of one decision. She had lost it because she forgot the core of service, to listen first, to act after. He closed his eyes for a second and whispered, "Ask. That's all it takes." The following morning, news anchors replayed the clips. Business podcasts dissected his lines. Motivational speakers tweeted his words. But Marcus didn't watch. He was already moving on, planning the next project, meeting with engineers, checking blueprints. His legacy wouldn't be defined by a viral clip at a gate. But for everyone who saw it, it would remain unforgettable. They would remember the man in sweatpants who stood calm while the system screamed green. They would remember the CEO who didn't shout to prove he was in charge. They would remember the moment a team collapsed not with chaos but with clarity. And most of all, they would remember the truth he left behind. Respect doesn't wear uniforms. It wears truth. That was the legacy, not the firing, not the suspension. The lesson, the reminder that dignity cannot be denied by a badge or a gate or uniform. Dignity belongs to those who stand calm in the storm and let the silence do the work. The story would live on, told in living rooms, classrooms, boardrooms, and phone screens. A gate in Beverly Hills had become a mirror for the world. And in that mirror, people had seen what true leadership looks like. Marcus Hall didn't trend because he fired people. He trended because he didn't have to raise his voice to do it. And as the sun set over his mansion that night, one truth lingered in the air like the final line of a story that refused to be forgotten. Calm is the loudest sound in the room.